she has hangers hanging on the rack and the towels hanging on the hanger. I even got rid of the ones that were in the drawer because I didn't want her to look through and find them. So she would just kind of sit there. So I'm going to post a picture of this, and you tell me.
Welcome in to another episode of Foreigner Loves
Filipina.
You know, one thing that I do advise anybody who is bringing a Filipina to America is you have to really be aware that she's getting ready to go through a huge change, a huge adjustment. And I felt it was my responsibility to do as much as I could to make that transition easy, because I knew no matter what I did, it wasn't going to be easy, but try to make it easier. And, you know, when she was in the Philippines, we used to watch 9 Day Fiancé all the time, and she couldn't get it there. So I would literally hold up the phone to the TV when we would have some of our video chats so we could watch it together. And because we were going through that process, obviously we related to the show.
Yes.
But one of the things I noticed in that show were the guys making terrible mistakes. That when their fiance would come to the new house, the house would be dirty or filthy, or the room still had clutter everywhere.
Or there's a pictures on their ex-wife if they are divorced.
Right, picture of their ex-wife. So I kind of made sure that the house was prepared. I didn't have any pictures of my ex-wife hanging, but I did have them in some drawers. And I even got rid of the ones that were in the drawer because I didn't want her to look through and find them, you know. I also emptied out the whole dresser drawer for her so that it was ready to put her clothes in when she got here. And so, you know, little things like that just make it feel like home. Obviously I had the welcome sign and all that you would expect, but I think you have to be a little cognizant of trying to make the landing here as easy as possible. One of the other things that I did was I arranged small meetings with the family rather than everybody in a big group, because I really felt that would overwhelm Melanie, and I think that proved to be.
Yeah, and I think that really worked for me, because if I'm gonna meet a lot of people in one time in one place, that would be terrible.
We met with my mom and stepdad first in their house. My mom prepared dinner, and so we had time there. I'll ask you what you remember of that, but the main thing I remember is my stepfather has a very strong Southern accent.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting there talking, and I could tell she was not understanding Howard.
I was like looking at Darryl like, what did he
And so I would have to translate. But it took me a little while to realize she wasn't understanding. But I remember that I started translating. That was one of the first things I remember. What do you remember of that meeting and the meal?
I like the meal. I like, you know, my mother-in-law's food that she prepared. I really like it. I think that's the first food that I like here in America. My mom's mom-in-law's food.
Yeah, she does good Southern cooking.
Yes,
she makes like a hamburger, not a hamburger steak, like a Swiss steak, you know, in the gravy with onions and mashed potatoes.
So good.
Mashed potatoes.
And then they asked me question. It was my mom-in-law first, and she asked me question. And then I keep looking back to Darryl, and I said, like, you know, asking him, babe, what did she say? And so Darryl will translate it for me, because the accent is just thick for me.
After meeting with my mom and Howard, then we met with my boys. I have 3 boys that are all grown. My youngest was 17, I think, at the time.
17.
They're currently 25, 22, and 20. So we had a meeting with them where we went bowling. And amazingly, she'd never been bowling, and I think she won one of the games, didn't you? I think she won.
I don't think so. I think I'm the second place. You're the first.
Place. Yeah, I think I was first, but you beat all the boys.
First, yes.
You beat all the boys.
And they were like surprised. I don't even know how to play bowling. I just like, yep, you know, roll the ball and that's it.
Yeah, so we went out for dinner and went bowling. Then it was meeting my brothers and their wives. And then at some point we started getting introduced to friends, you know, little by little. So I would really recommend that to anybody. If you're bringing a Filipino to America, is don't overwhelm them with the number of people they're going to meet at any one time. Let them meet small groups and pace it out. Of course, one of the things that I struggle with, not just the initial meetings, really the first 6 months, I would say, is I got to know Melanie very well, but Melanie was quiet. When we first started video chatting, she hardly talked at all. I had to talk to Sister Darcelet all the time, because she was nervous, and particular girls from the province, they're a little more timid, a little more reserved, which is actually a very good thing, but you've got to get through that. And I do remember for the first 6 months, it was frustrating for me because whenever we would get together with friends or family, she would be so quiet. She just hardly talked. And I felt like it was being hard for my family and friends to get to know her, but also for them to really get to know Melanie's personality, because Melanie has a very fun, vivacious personality, and I got to know that, particularly when we're on vacations.
Yeah, like the traveling.
Yeah, and I can't remember at what point that wall finally broke down, but it took quite a few months.
Yeah, Darryl is always telling me that, babe, you need initiate the conversation so they will also talk to you. And it was really hard for me because of the language. I don't think it's the language barrier already, because I know how to speak English. It's just that, like, sometimes if you speak English, you're afraid to get mistake, like the grammar. That's why I want to avoid it. So, like, for avoiding it, I just want to be quiet.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a real issue, and maybe even still is a little bit 3 years down the road. Her fear of speaking improper English really hampered her developing relationships with friends and family. And I could never understand why she was so self-conscious about it, because she speaks and spoke back then very good English. And her accent isn't real strong. People understood her, but she was very self-conscious about it. And that self-consciousness was a real barrier to her meeting people and for them to really get to know her and know her big personality. And that was a frustration of mine, because I was like, I know her personality and I know how vibrant she is and how exciting she is, how much fun she is. But whenever we'd get together with people, she would just kind of sit there. And unless they talked specifically to her, she would just kind of fade off into the background. And that's why I was telling her, she was like, oh, I don't know how to initiate the conversation. And of course, I'd been in sales my entire life, so I'd kind of learned how to initiate small talk with people if I had to. And I just told her, ask them questions about themselves. People love to talk about themselves, so just keep asking them questions.
Like, I will ask them question, and then after that, I don't know what is the next question I'm going to ask, because I feel like I already know Darryl's friends. I already know their story. So I don't have anything to talk about.
In helping kind of prepare the way for Melanie, I felt it was very important that the house feels like a home to her. I'm kind of a minimalist. My kitchen counter, there was nothing on it. There's nothing on my refrigerator. I'm very much a minimalist in life in general, and particularly my house. Like, I don't like clutter. If you know anything about Filipinas, it's not just her. They're polar opposite. And I had kind of prepared myself before she came. I was like, I have to allow the kitchen to be hers, even if it bugs me or irritates me or I don't like it. And
so, like, when I was still, in the Philippines, are you really expecting that your kitchen will be going to be a lot of...
I knew it was going to change.
Like, how?
Well, just because I put everything in the cupboards. I don't leave everything out on the counter. And so now, I mean, a lot of things are sitting out on the counter. My refrigerator had nothing on it. I think I did have a couple of pictures. I'll take a picture and post of our refrigerator now, because she loves souvenir magnets. We have to have a souvenir magnet from every place we go, so they all get stuck up there with pictures and everything. So now the refrigerator is quite busy, and I'm fine with all that. But those are all things that I have to kind of let go, and I think it's important that the house be hers. And then one thing that made our adjustment easier than probably a lot of people was, luckily, it was just her and I living in the home. My boys had already grown and moved out. My youngest was just going away to college. So we didn't have to deal with my boys in the house, or, my mom living in the house, or anything like that. And that allowed us to adjust and her be comfortable in the house. But also it allowed, I think what a big advantage for us is she was able to have her own bathroom. in her own. She took one of the boys' bedrooms and made that her like dressing room where she could do her makeup and she could put all her clothes. And I think it made it easier on both of us because I didn't have to move everything out of my closet and I didn't have to rearrange my bathroom and my shower. You know, those are all obviously kind of personal things to everybody. And it allowed her to set up her bathroom exactly the way she wants and make her dressing room / makeup room exactly the way she wants. And I know not everybody has that advantage. Luckily we did. I do think that helped a lot. But I would say, even if you don't have the advantage of the extra room like that, do whatever you can to help her feel comfortable and prepare a space for her. She has to have her own space. In our spare bathroom, which is really now her bathroom, the clothes rack where you would normally have your towels hanging, she has, if you know Filipinos, they put everything on a hanger. So instead of having the towels hanging on the rack, she has hangers hanging on the rack and the towels hanging on the hanger. Now, I don't understand that. I have no idea why she wants to do that. But I don't know that I've really said much about that to you at all, because I'm like, okay, this is her bathroom. The only time I do anything is if we're going to have guests over, is I will take those away and put, you know, a regular towel on the towel rack.
Yeah, let me explain about like me putting my towel in a hanger. So in the rack, it's just only one towel will fit in there, but I have two. I have one towel for my hair and one for my body. So where I'm gonna put the other towel if I only, the other towel, the big towel, is the only one that will fit in there. So that's why I have these two hangers with my towel, and so problem solved.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna post a picture of this, and you tell me whether her two towels could fit on this rack or not, okay? But this is an example. Obviously, there's others, but that's just one little example of how, you know, you have to make her feel welcome. It is her home now. And I'd lived in this home right at 20 years. So obviously I had roots. I'd raised my boys there. So I was very attached to the way things were, but I had to try to detach. And luckily I was aware of that before she came. I was like, I have to allow space. I have to allow her to make it her home. And we've done that. And I think that's something that made things easier for you, don't you think?
Yeah, because Darryl let me have my space, let me put my things, you know, separate from his things. So that's kind of nice.
The other thing, as far as preparing the way for her, is making sure that everyone knows she's coming. You know, that you haven't hidden that from anybody. I decided fairly early on, I'm just letting everyone know. If they think I'm crazy or nuts for bringing this Filipina in, that's fine. I felt like the earlier I told them, the better, because it allowed them time to adjust, because I knew it was going to be a big adjustment for them because of statements I'd always made about I'm never going to marry again and things like that. I thought it was better to let them know earlier rather than later. So everyone knew she was coming. There were no secrets or hidden things from anybody. And I think that made it easier for her. If she had gotten here and there were a lot of people who didn't even know she was coming, well, then obviously it becomes a much more awkward exchange for your family and friends and for her. So it's really not fair to either one of them.
It's really a smart idea for Darryl to let his friends, his family know that I'm coming, so that when I came here in America, it will be like easier for me and for them too. Like it's easy for them to accept me as a young Filipina, you know, fiancée with Darryl. So I think, yeah, that's like a smart move for Darryl to do that. I really appreciate you, babe, for doing that to me.
And the other thing is I did do some video. She video chatted with really probably more my friends than my family, because when I would hang out in the evenings with my friends, there's a lot of the time when she was waking up, she'd be texting me saying she's awake, and then I would video chat because I wanted her to meet people. So she met a lot of my friends. I kind of have a friend group. We'd always hang out most evenings. And so she met a lot of them prior to her getting here. So she was texting and exchanging messages with friends and family before she ever got here. So that really helped, I think, a lot. The other thing that I did, and it was somewhat lucky, but I did take the initiative to make it happen, is one night when I was out with that friend group at kind of our local pub that we always hung out at, there was a lady sitting at the bar kind of diagonal from me, and I kept looking at her, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this woman's Filipino. I think she's Filipino. And I eventually initiated a conversation with her, and I said, "Are you Filipino?" And she said yes. And we talked, and I told her I'm engaged to a Filipina, and she's going to be coming over. So that was several months before she came. I can't remember exactly how far in advance, but it was many months before she came.
Yeah.
And so I think that very night I got on a video call and introduced the two of them, and then they exchanged Facebook.
We talked for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she became friends with Sandra right up front, and they were exchanging before she came. And so when she got here, she already had a Filipina friend. And I can't stress how important it was. We're going to do a whole video about this later on. But her having a Filipina friend and a Filipina connection. Now, Sandra was an older woman, so she's not someone that she hangs out with regularly now. But Sandra was very, very vital to making a good transition for Melanie. And she also got her introduced to the Filipina community in our area. And she can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I came here, the first Filipino I know is only Ate Sandra, because her and me were already like exchanging conversation back when I was still in the Philippines. We're still chatting in a messenger. And so when I came here, so I text her that, I already here in America, so we find a time that we meet in a place. So we met, and then, we talk a lot. I like her, we vibes, because she's also Filipina, but she's not my age. That's what Darryl said, she's older than what I used to hang out, And so I'm really thankful with Ate Sandra, because she really helped me know more Filipino here in Lynchburg, which I didn't know that there's a lot of Filipino here. And then we called it like a Filipino community.
Yeah.
So she introduced me to these other friends, and then these friends also like invite me to a party, where I found a lot of friends from a party, like a birthday party, a Christmas party. And so now the adjustment here with me having a Filipino friends is way easier.
So one last thing that I did that was very simple and easy to help her be more comfortable when she got here, when she settled in, is on Facebook we have a community that's like an area community called Lynchburg Living. So it's just obviously about news in the area and what's going on, where people post. So I had her join that pretty early on, so that she at least got familiar with the area and what's going on here and what people talk about. And I think that helped be a little bit know about what's going on in the community that's soon going to be her home. And then when we did video chats quite often, I would walk around to different places in Lynchburg and show her. Actually, where we're sitting right now, Monument Terrace, is a place that I showed her before we got here. We got married right there. There's a church behind us. We didn't get married in the church. We got married in front of the church. The courthouse is right here. So we literally got our court papers there, walked down here, and we're married behind us almost 3 years ago. So, but that was an example of something else that I did to try to make things as easy a transition as possible.